this example, you can see we have our list of projects where at the bottom there we have our last project in the list is from the customer ABC Construction Groups, and we have a project name ABC Construction Demo Project. We click on the project ID to view the details of the project. We can then click on the stages and charges to view the individual details of all the stages and the charges associated with them. As we can see here, we have two stages. One of them is main, which is the main scaffold, and then we have extra, which is a loading bay and some stair units. So we have the main scaffold and the loading bay with some stair units, and as we look down the bottom there, the charges associated with each stage are shown down the bottom. So for the loading bay and stair units, we have some rental, we have some labour and some transport. To invoice this project, all we need to do is click on the invoice button. It'll take us to the invoice page. So as you can see, all the items at the top of the screen represent the components that have not been fully invoiced yet. We can then choose any particular stage and invoice any particular component. So in this example, I'm going to invoice the main scaffold, and I'm going to invoice a date range for the actual rental. So I'm going to invoice from the 1st of March, and I'm not going to do the full period. I'm going to invoice from to the 14th. Press tab, click on add, and the charge is created down the bottom. I can continue with this and invoice by a percentage, or I can type in the actual amount to bill. So in the second example, I'm going to choose to bill some erect labour, and I'm going to choose to bill $4,000 worth of that. Click on add the charges. Dismantle labour, I won't invoice yet, and I'll invoice some delivery transport, and I'll just manually type in $1,800. Click add. I'm happy with the main stage. I'm now going to change over to the extra stage, and I'm going to invoice the rental period from, in this case, from the 5th of 3rd. Our quotation was for 2 weeks of rental. I'm going to invoice just 1 week of that rental, so I'll just invoice to the 11th of March instead. Type in the 11th of March, click add, and then charges are added to the bottom of the screen. I'll now invoice some erect labour for the extra charges. So I'll invoice the full amount. So if I just click on add, as you can see, it automatically adds the full amount to the bottom of the screen. For delivery transport, I may decide in this case that I'm only going to invoice $300 of it. So I can go back there, type in $300 as the charge rate, and that's included on the invoice. If I go back to the main set of charges, if I decided that I had made a mistake, I can easily change that by going back and removing whatever I'd like to remove. So I may decide, okay, well, I'm going to remove the erect labour because I made a mistake there, and the erect labour is populated back at the top of the screen. So if I go back in here, I wanted to illustrate that I can now type in a percentage to charges instead of an actual charge rate. So instead of the original $4,000, I can actually say, well, I'm going to charge 66.666 Click on add, and as you can see, that's added back down the bottom of the screen. So if I'm happy with that, I can now click on generate invoice, and the invoice is created. And I can now print this invoice in a variety of formats. So here we have our progress claim invoice. The title at the top of the screen is customizable, and we have our full details of the contract with all the relevant charges associated with the 2 stages. For the details, we can always print the progress claim detail report, which will show each stage with a breakdown of every single component, with percentage billed so far and the current bill. If we exit out of the project screen, here we have our list of invoices. If I click on invoice date and I click again, it'll actually put the latest invoice at the top, and as we can see there, our invoice is third from the top. We can choose to export invoices for any particular date range. So let's choose to export for the date that we're actually invoicing. 15th, 14, 15 for 14. So if we click on find, all the list of invoices for the current date or the date that we selected is now listed, and we can export all of those invoices at the same time. All I need to do now is click on export to file. We can choose a variety of invoice templates relating to the actually company name that you're exporting from. You can have different company files for the different MYOB data files if you had different companies. In this case, we don't have separate companies, so we'll just simply click OK and export to the file name. And we give it our file name, in this case, MYOB Invoices 5. The export is now complete. In MYOB, I select the File option. I go to Import Data, Sales, Service Sales. I click on Continue. I select the file I want to import. Click on Match All, then click on Import. As you can see, the records are imported without any errors. We can now click on the sales register to view the list of invoices, search by date, or we can just scroll down to the invoice that we're looking for, which is on the 15th of April, which is this invoice here. The invoice total being $11,880 including tax. If I double click on it, I can view the invoice. As you can see, it has the customer details, the job details, some additional information, and of course all the items with the GL codes and total amounts. This is a summary invoice, of course. The invoice that you send to the client would most likely be the actual invoice coming out of S-Contract, but it's even imported into your accounting system for accounts receivable and general ledger purposes. If I view a PDF of our actual invoice, again we can see our actual invoice has an ex-tax amount of $10,800, $11,880. And of course we have the detail with all the individual items on our detailed claim invoice from S-Contract, and that will match up with all the GL codes in the MYOB invoice. You could imagine how much time you would save when you import hundreds of invoices during the month in batch.